Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder. And throughout April, I will be looking at the worst rated and most panned episodes of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, and Jonathan Creek. Today, I will be looking at Jonathan Creek, The Letters of Septimus Noone. Or as I like to call it, that time, doing a Columbo was a really bad idea. We begin the episode at a murder mystery musical, which is a great idea, but Jonathan is irritated by all the people using their phones and gets into a slap fight, which results in Jonathan getting injured, and his wife Polly, yes, he has a wife now, being annoyed about it. They meet Zelda, who's running the show, and experiences Juno's lack of confidence and Christoph's impatience. And as Juno says goodnight to Angus, he hands her some mail. Angus creeps around in the dark and apologizes to Rachel for being late with a shag, but she's not into it because he's not paying attention. She accuses him of always fantasizing about Juno and leaves. And the next day, Sharon has weird conversations with Polly before her daughter Ripley runs screaming from Jonathan because she took something he said literally, and Sharon has a go at him. This is all very weird. The musical gets all Phantom of the Opera, but the boat malfunctions, causing Juno to be sick, so Angus gets her some water, while Rachel pores through a program for the show and finds a message and a photo she doesn't like. After Juno leaves the theatre and Angus stares at her, Rachel confronts her and then stabs her, which she immediately regrets, and stalker Angus tries to help. At Sharon's, her son Ridley comes home, who looks like about 5 different Harry Potter characters stuck together, and he's very excited to meet Jonathan and deduces what happened to his neck and where they've been by looking at the stuff around him, but they politely don't tell him that he's completely wrong. Sharon gets a message saying her dad has died, but then realizes she picked up Polly's phone instead and celebrates, but dude, read the room! Angus tends to Juno, who eyeballs Rachel, and Angus explains that Rachel hasn't been the same since their baby died, and she apologizes and breaks down. Polly goes to the funeral home to see her father.
Why is everything so hard?
Rigor mortis, I think you'll find.
That's terrible! And they go to his house, where Jonathan comforts her. Daryl is flabbergasted that Juno won't go to the hospital or the police, so offers to take a look at her injury, finding a prosthetic to cover her wound on stage, while Polly and Jonathan go through Dad's things, reminiscing. Daryl watches on as Juno performs, but she seems fine, before she crashes stomach first into a piece of set, but doesn't tell anyone. Instead, she goes back to her dressing room. Zelda visits, asking for some programs to be signed, and drops a post-it note, so Juno locks the door and removes her prosthesis, which reveals she's bleeding again. She slips, which alerts Zelda, who has someone break down the door, and it looks to them like a brutal attack, but Daryl keeps his mouth shut. At her dad's funeral, Polly is bugged by a family friend who believes in angels and spirits, and Jonathan gets a call about Juno's case, which Polly isn't happy about, but someone is.
Do I hear the words work experience?
Zelda suspects it may be a crazed fan and explains in the musical the injury occurred before she entered the room, but that's impossible here. So Ridley investigates the room, and Hazel comes back to annoy Polly again. Ridley spins off another wildly incorrect theory, while Jonathan clocks this painting, and Zelda points out this is all bullshit. And that night, Jonathan feels his age as Polly tells him what Hazel told her. Hazel collected her mother's ashes, but dropped the urn when the phone rang. Her neighbour warned her the cat had gotten into the main road, so she rushed out, only to find the ashes gone when she returned, despite the house being locked and her having the only key. Jonathan enjoyed that story. The next day, Jonathan watches Juno's final performance, noting that something seems off, while Polly goes through her dad's clothes and finds a note from her mum asking him to destroy a box under the floorboards without opening it. Polly goes to town on the floorboards, but Jonathan has done the same in another bedroom and recovers the box.
What did she say? Please destroy without opening?
Yes, bugger that.
In the box is a bunch of love letters from Septimus, classic bad guy name, and obviously not Polly's father. And Jonathan picks up a book. This one is an anagram of nowhere, which puzzles him. He's also puzzled when he remembers the painting with the signature Sawjoy on the wall, and Polly goes to meet Hazel, who says she never heard of Septimus. But let's do a seance. I love that John Kramer gets a Google shout out in this episode, but Sawjoy doesn't seem to mean seen anything. Never mind, Ridley is here with another wrong theory, suggesting Juno was crossbowed by a shard of frozen blood, which I'll grant you is clever, but shut up Ridley, Jonathan has an idea. Hazel says she feels a faint vibration. Her mother's spirit? No, it's a Roomba, and fair play, that reveal made me laugh. And afterwards, Polly visits her parents' graves, only to clock one belonging to Septimus Noone nearby. She goes back and shows Jonathan the gravestone, which states he died before the letters were written, and he says there's a clear explanation, but he needs to deal with the theatre thing first. Polly pulls out a newspaper she had earlier, which is now missing its coffee stain, and at the theatre, she causes a distraction so Jonathan can break into the dressing room. The characters assemble, including Rachel, who Angus takes away, with Jonathan and Polly going to see Daryl, saying they know he and Juno are covering for someone. Rachel comes back in to hear Ridley spout theories, while Jonathan spills the truth to Daryl about how he stashed the prosthetic inside the painting and then hung it back up the wrong way. And he admits they were covering for someone but won't say who. Ridley rambles on, accusing the tuba player, but Rachel goes for a swing and they all work together to cut her down. She's dead, Jim. On the drive home, Jonathan gets onto that Septimus problem, which turns out was Hazel because of the way she folded the paper. And why? Because Polly's mum asked her to, so her dad wouldn't be so sad about her death. Great, it's Sharon. And Polly explains to her about the coffee-stained newspaper. There were 2 copies and the top of the desk had been rotated, which she blamed Sharon for because Ripley had carved something on it, causing her and Ridley to have to turn it around. Okay, there is a big problem with this episode. The whole point of Jonathan Creek is the mystery of the locked room crimes and trying to figure out the solution. So why the hell they would reveal the solution, the perpetrator and the motive before anything else baffles me. It ruins the fun. I know this is a Columbo thing, but it categorically does not work for Jonathan Creek. The thing is as well, they didn't need to reveal the solution at the beginning. It would have worked if they'd done it at the end. We could have seen Juno leave the theatre and been followed by Rachel. We could have seen her talking to Daryl but not know what about. We could have seen her walk into the bench and then have Zelda see her completely fine in the dressing room. Juno would then lock the door, we'd hear what sounded like a struggle, the guy booted the door down, and boom, we have a mystery. What I don't get as well is, sure, Daryl would agree not to say anything when Juno was fine, but as soon as that shit went down in the dressing room, he would have told the police the truth. There was no reason not to. He had no connection to Rachel whatsoever. They would have been better off making Angus and Daryl the same person, so he would have at least had a reason to protect Rachel after the fact. Ridley was an interesting addition. I didn't mind his inclusion, but Sharon and Ripley were very annoying, and the whole horse, desk carving, disappearing coffee stain plotline was not at all necessary. Hazel was also kind of annoying, but worked into the episode well enough with her Roomba mystery, and Polly's father's passing gave a lot of heart to the episode, explored her relationship with Jonathan, and added another layer of mystery, but I already worked that one out from the title of the episode. When I first saw it, I read it as Septimus No One, and was surprised when Jonathan pronounced it as Septimus Noone. I also clocked the nowhere book clue straight away, which makes probably the only time I've worked something out on Jonathan Creek. Hooray! As far as victims are concerned, Polly's dad died of natural causes, and Rachel sort of did that to herself, so I have nothing to count here. So there you have it. That was The Letters of Septimus Noone. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to keep investigating with me. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching. I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.